Today, Marquette Law School is releasing the results of its latest poll covering a wide range of topics. When it comes to the governor's race, about 2/3 of voters in both primaries say they haven't decided. On the Republican side, Congressman Tom Tiffany is still the favorite with 35% support. And on the Democratic side, State Assembly Representative Francesca Hong and former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes have the most support in the poll. And when it comes to ICE, most voters polled said they disapprove, 56 to 44%. That's mostly split among party lines, with nearly 3/4 of independents saying they don't support ICE. And with data centers becoming a big issue in Wisconsin, an overwhelming majority of voters say the costs of data centers outweigh the benefits. That one is 70 to 29%.